This is Gemara Menachos Daf Tzadik Zayin, and we're holding on at Tzadik Zayin Amud Aleph. We are about 12 lines from the top. We ended off Zah Shulchan Asher Lefnei Hashem. We read the last few lines a little bit quickly, so just to go back for a moment, we're in the middle of discussing whether a keli, what is the status of a keli when it is coated. So Rav Yochanan, no, not Rav Yochanan, excuse me. So when we turned over the Amid, the Gemara answered that Amar Le, Rav Yochanan responded, Loishana, 2 lines from the top, El Tzipoy Oimid, Loishana Tzipoy Sheino Oimid. Loishana Chipa as Levazid, and Loishana Chipa, Loi Chipa as Levazid. That whether it's anchored or not, whether it covers the rim or not, that we assume that the Shulchan is the same status of that which covers it, the gold. So we see from over here, says the Gemara, that the shulchan is going to be considered a metal, like golden keli. So the kasha is, how could Rish Lakish learn from there? So maybe you're going to tell me that the shulchan was created of a special wood. It was created of ate shitim, and because it was created of shitim wood, therefore it's not batal. Says the Gemara, Anichla Rish Lakish, that what? Amar lo shanu ela bikli. That the wood is only tafel if it's a kli of asilgus wood that comes from Medina Sayan. Why? Because such wood is not chashiv. But said Reish Lakish aval kli mismas chashivi v'lo bali, but misses what is chashiv and not batal to that which plates it. So Shabir al Rav Yochanan kli mismas nami bali Michael and Meimar. So the Gemara responded, this is really where we ended, with the Gemara responding to the Kasha, that according to Rav Yochanan, the Shulchan is going to be Tameh. Why? Because it's never going to be considered Tafel to the plating of gold, and therefore, how can we learn out from the Shulchan that it was lifted and carried? Said the Gemara, Shani Shulchan Rachmana Kari, that in as much as you're right, in as much as the shulchan was plated with gold, it has a different status. Why? Because, says the Gemara, the Torah coins the shulchan as being eitz. Shenamar hamizbech eitz shalish amos gavaya arka shtayim amos ubiksoyz zoloiva arka kureisa ve'eitz v'davar eliza shulchan asher lefnei Hashem. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Let's look at this pasuk a little bit carefully. Pasach b'mizbeach v'sayom b'shulchan. What's the pasuk talking about? Rav Yochanan, Rav Lazar, Dar mitzarvayu b'zman shebeis hamikdash kayom mizbeach mechaber al adam v'achshav shebeis hamikdash kayom shulchanoi shel adam mechaber alav. One shulchan. What does it mean, one shulchan? It's like Rashi, a very critical Rashi. Denoisein prusa la'archim, hachlasas archim, feeding people, inviting them to be a yor shulchan. That is what gives the kapara. A incredible Gemara. And with that, we continue. We're at the 2 dots, about 20 lines down. Tzadik Zayin Amud Aleph. Arba Stephen Shalzav Hayusham Vechulu. There were 4 props of gold, 28 rods, each of a half a hollow reed. Says the Gemara, Menani Mili, what's the Makaram? Rav Ketina Mar Kravas Yisa Karaisav Chapoisav Kasaisav Inikiyoisav Karaisav Elu. What are the Karaisav that the pasuk is referring to? Is the fusim. These are the molds. Kapoisav are what? Elu Bazichem. These are the spoons for the Levaina. Ketaisav Elu Sinifin. Those are the props. Manikiyoisav Elu Kanim Asher Yosach Bahen. Are what shemisachem bahen es halechem, that the rods are utilized to cover the bread. So that's going to be the makar for all the different parts of the shulchan that we are discussing. Masiv Rava Frekt Rava Lo Yisider Akanim, says our Mishnah, V'lo nitlas v'lo nital tamdeiches Shabbos. The cedar of the common, the arrangement of the rods, nor the removal is Daiches Shabbos. But Frakt Gemara, I don't understand. If you're going to tell me Daraisa, Amai ein Daiches as Shabbos. Hadam Rava Lamel Sida Hamri. Says Rava, that which I said is nothing. The Tanan Klal Amar Rabbi Akiva Kol Malacha She'efshel L'aseisim Erev Shabbos Einoi Doiches Shabbos. Anything that you could have done on Erev Shabbos is not Doiche the Shabbos. A very important klal because you could have done it prior. Vahani, Nami, and these as well, the setting up of the Shulchan, Efshar, Deloidachi, Shabbos, Alayhu. The rods could be in a way, does not need to be Deicha Shabbos. Why? Because it could be removed prior to Shabbos and replaced after Shabbos. Says Gemara Taimamai. Why do you need the rods in the first place? The doughs are stacked. Why do you have to put these poles in between them? Says the Gemara, we don't want the bread to become moldy. And therefore, in the short amount of time between Erev Shabbos and Motzai Shabbos, they can have breads without the rods in between. It will not become moldy. Kedetanya is learned in a brayso. The kohen enters into the Mishkan on Erev Shabbos. The Shaimtam, and he removes the rods of Menichan and he leaves them La'arka Shulchan on the floor along the length of the Shulchan of Motzai Shabbos Nichlas Magbiyah. Raisha Shalchala, he lifts the edge of the loaf, Umachnis Kana Tachtel, and he puts the rod underneath it, V'chozer, Umagbia Raisha Shalchala, and he picks up the other end of the chala, Umachnis Kana Tachtel, and he puts the rod underneath it, and he does this, each part putting on underneath the new bread. So on Erev Shabbos, the rods are removed. The Motzei Shabbos, the rods are placed back in. And the amount of time that the breads are sitting on their own are not enough to become moldy. Says the Brisa, 10 lines to the bottom. The first one line is Arba chalos richais shloisha kanim. The 4 middle loaves. Each one requires 3 rods each. Al yaina inay tzricha l'shnayim lefi she'ina leha masai. What's the reason? Because it doesn't have the extra weight. Tatachtaina and tzricha kol iker. It sits in the bottom. Lefi she'menachos al taharoi shal shulchan. It sits on the purity of the table. So that's the reason why in the bottom you don't need the top, you need less, and it's the middle ones that need the bulk of these rods. Says the Gemara, and that's the reason why it's not going to be Deicha Shabbos. Why? Because it's efshar to do it on Erev Shabbos and on Motzei Shabbos. The Gemara is conceding that be'etzem avada it should. In klal, it would be Deicha Shabbos. But because it's not necessary, therefore it is not. Says the Gemara, 6 lines from the bottom. Our Mishnah, we had a machlekes. We had a machlekes, our mayor near Yehuda, as to the midah, the shear, the precise measurements of the shulchan. Says the Gemara Tanan Awesome. We learned a Mishnah in Kalim. Rabbi Meir Aimer Kol Amma Yishay B'Mikdash Beinayis. They were Amma middle level Ammois. Chutz B'Mizbech Hazav HaKeren VaSaviv HaYisoid. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Ammas Binyan was Shisha Tzvachim. Says Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Meir is holding their Beinayis, which are each Amma 6 Tvachim. Rabbi Yehuda says they built the Mishkan. The Amma was 6 Tvachim. Shalkelim was Chamisha was 5 Tvachim. Amar Rav Yechon, where do I know this? Where do I get this Yisoid? Says Rav Yechon, where does Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda get their Yisoid? Shnei Mikracha Darsha, the Darsha in the same pasuk. A pasuk in Yecheskel, Perik Mem Gimel, Ve'lamidas HaMizrach, Va'amois Amma V'toifach. Says the Gemara, continues the pasuk in Yecheskel as we turn over to Amabez, V'cheko Amma, V'amarecha V'gvula Shal Shifsa Se'aviv Zeres O'echa V'zeh Kav Hamiz Beach. So what do we learn out from this pasuk? Says Rav Yechanan. Let's take this pasuk apart. From here we're going to see the side of the machlekes Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda as to the precise type of amma that is utilized. Chek amma, when the pasuk says the base of the amma is a yisai, that's the base of the mizbeach. Amma reichav says the pasuk zeu saiviv. Ukvula el sifasa saviv zaris ha'echad. This is elu akranis. Ze gava mizbeach, lehem mizbeach hazav. And those are all different parts of the mizbeach. And therefore, that's where we see that in as much as the mizbeach hazav was utilized, the amma beinyan yais, the 6 tefach amma, These specific parts of the Mizbeach was utilizing the 5 tefach amma. So Rameir Savar Zehu Ba'ama Bas Chamisha, just these items that are listed in the pasuk. The Yisoid, the Soivev, the Skronois, Hakol Amois, Kelim Ba'ama Bashisha, but everything else is going to be a 6 tefach amma. Rav Yehuda Savar, no, because there you call Amois Kelim just like this. All the kelim will be made with the 5 tefach amma, and only the binyan is going to be utilizing the 6 tefach amma. Says the Gemara, 6 lines down, the first line is kelim. Kazal gadaydach mi yisayid v'adsay ve'vam v'bas chamisha b'goiva. That the pasuk means that the height of the mizbeach from the base until the ledge is measured using an amma of 5 tefachim. Umay chek amma. What does the pasuk mean? Chek amma v'amma reichav. Hachik amar mechek amma ve'ad reichav. Now from the chek, from the base until the width, b'amma bas chamisha. But says the Gemara, 1 second. We know kova mizbeach kama have. How tall was the mizbeach? It was eser amos. Shit. B'nei chamsha, 6 of 5 tefachim each, that's 30 tefachim, v'arba, and 4 amos, b'nei shita, of 6 tefachim each, another 24, 30 and 24, 54 tefachim, mizbeach kamei havi chamishim v'arba, 54, palga de mizbeach kamei havi. So what is the height of half of the mizbeach, assuming we have a 10 amma mizbeach? Esrim v'sheva, 27 tefachim. Mikranai savad soiviv. And what's the distance from the horns into the ledge? Esrim v'arba. Kama botzer lipalgid mizbeach. So how much we have left to the halfway mark? Tlasa, 3 tefachim. So if you're going to be on the edge, you're going to be 3 tefachim halfway above the middle line. Utanan, and we learned in the Mishnah 3 lines in the wide lines. We had the line, the Chota Sikra, that ran through the middle of the Mizbeach. Why? To separate between Damim Alyonim and Damim Tachtainim. Sugis that we see extensively in Zvachim, how we have to know where the middle part of the Mizbeach is to know that when you're doing the Zrika, parts have to be Lamata, parts have to be Lamal. So says the Gemara in the last hour line. We learned in a brayse. We learned in a brayse on Zvachim regarding the oila. That what the kohen went up the kevesh. He went up the ramp and he turned to the right. He turned to the soivev. And he's at the southeastern corner. Ratio forms the malika. He shechs the bird. Mimolar pops to the neck. He squeezes out the blood. Al kerem mizbeach. Says the Gemara, if he reaches down and he does this act of squeezing out the blood, even 1 amma, where his legs are, it's going to be kosher. Why? Because it's above the halfway mark. But says the Gemara, the blood is now being placed at least 2 tefachim below the line. So our measurements do not equal out. Based on what we just said, the Saivev, the ledge, is going to be 3 tefachim above the Chut Asikra. So if you're standing and you reach your hand down, what's going to happen? You're going to be too low. So says the Gemara, how is this going to work? We clearly can't learn the pasuk in Yecheskel the way that was just suggested. Or rather, it says the Gemara, we have to learn the pasuk a little bit differently. What does the pasuk mean when it says chek amma? Means the indentation of the base. It means the width of the base. Amma reichav kenisa. That amma reichav gvula al sfasa saviv kenisa, and the border and a half amma around is the indentation. So all 10 amma, says the Gemara, when the height of the mizbeach is discussed, it's always going to be the 6 tefach amma. When the pasuk in Yecheskel said they're using a 5 tefach amma, it's not going high. It's in the width of the saiviv and the kranais, etc. And if we go down this road, it comes out, Mizbeach Kamehave, 5 lines into the white lines, Shitin and Palgate. It's going to be 60 Tvachim, 10 times 6 is 60. Palgate Mizbeach Kamehave. So before we said it was 27. Now we know that it's going to be Tlos and 30. Even the words, it's going to be 24. Chavtalid, Kama Batsa Palgate Mizbeach, Shisha. So now you have 6 Tvachim between the halfway mark and the Chota Sekra. Utanan, it's going to be Sheira. And now it works out perfectly. It's to be right above the Chota Sekra, right above the halfway line. And that's the reason why it's going to be kosher. But frek the Gemara, 1 second. B'ma you came to Bekanisa. You're telling me that when the Paskin Yischeskel learns that there's some Amos which are 5 Tfachim, talking about the Kanisa, the indentation, Omimat is Mokmes La Bekanisa, Vatanan, Mizbeach, Shleishim Mishtayim, Shleishim Mishtayim, Shteidim Mishal, Mizbeach was 32 Tfachim. By 32 Tvachim, 32 Amos, excuse me. By 32 Amos, Allah Amavikanis Amos El Yisaid. Go up and indent 1, that is the Yisaid. Al Shleishim, so what do we have? So we have 1 Am on either end. Now we're 30 by 30. Names Shleishim Al Shleishim. Shleishim Mishtei Tvachim Ahavu. But says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me that you're not using a full 6 Tefach Hama on that indentation, you're only using a 5 Tefach Hama. So now it's not going to be 30 Amos and 30 Amos. It's going to be 30. So it doesn't work to also say that the pasuk in Yecheskel is referring to the indentation. And furthermore, Allah Chamish V'kanis Hama says in the Mishnah, go up 5 and indent 1. Zehu Soivev Nimsa Esim Mishmaina Lesim Mishmaina 28. No, it's not. Esim Mishmaina V'arba Tfachim Avu. Again, Nachamol. If the next indent in after the first half of the Mizbech as well is only utilizing 5 Tevachamas, it's not going to be a full 28. It's going to be 28 and 4 Tfachim. Maybe we rounded it off. Says the Gemara, Makakronas Amizeh Amizeh Nimsa. The end of that Mishnah said, Esim V'sheish al Esim V'sheish, but it's not true. Because if each indent you're losing 1 tefach between the 5 and 6 tefach hama, when you go up all the way 3, you can have eser v'sheva havu. So it's a full 27. Your full tefach or your full amo. Says Marloi Duck. Okay, we weren't precise. Says Zimar, let's go weiter. The place where the Kahanim walked the top of the Mizbeach was 1 amma by 1 amma. Nimsa esim v'arba, al esim v'arba, makom ha'rocha esim v'chamesh avo. He says, where it's not true, nachamol. The bright Mishnah says, you take off 1 amma where the Kahanim walks, so the middle area where the Maracha is, the pyre is 24 amos. Says where no, it's not. It's really 25 amos. But we have a different pasuk in Yecheskel. It says the Ariel, which refers to the fire, the Maracha, is 12 by 12. So I would think that, excuse me, one more time. I think I skipped. Ravua. The pasuk says it's 12 by 12 square. In 4 quadrants, that teaches me 12 by 12 is a quarter. So we know it's 12 amas in each direction. So we see from the pasuk in Yecheskel, if each quarter is 12 by 12, it's 24 by 24. So you can't say that's also low duck. Maybe you're going to tell me maybe you're going to tell me that 6 of these 32 amas of the Mizbeach were utilizing the 5 tefach hama, and that's how you don't lose the extra hama. So now we have different issues, and the azara is going to be bigger. That the azara was what, 187 in length by 135 in width. From east to west was 187. Yisrael was achas it was 11 amos where the Yisraelim were able to walk. Umakji Yisrael Yikanim was achas esrei. Amma mizbeach shleishim v'shtayim bein ulam the mizbeach esim v'shtayim. The ulam mizbeach was 22. Ha'echal was meya amma was 100 amos. Achas esrei achari b'sei kapares. So says the Gemara, but all our dimensions are off based on what the aforementioned numbers were. We come out with a serious problem. Basically, to make it a little bit simpler to understand, the Gemara is bothered that if you're going to be using the 5 tefach amma as the pasuk in Yecheskel suggested, you're going to continuously run into a serious issue. First, we thought it was discussing the area of the mizbeach. The problem is then the Mizbeach itself doesn't work in the dimensions, and at each turn, we tried to suggest, no big deal, loidak. Each time we're able to give us a different reason why we can be not precise, but we ran into a final problem in the fact that it said that the Pasuk in Yecheskel tells us the size of the Maracha, and that can't be not precise. And if you're going to tell me even that's not precise, then we run into an issue that the area of the actual Mishkan is going to be an issue. Just to pull up a nice picture over here, Stam, it's important just to know the dimensions. As you see 187 by 135, you see the Makom of Ragli Yisrael, and the bottom is 11, the Kanim another 11, the area of the Mizbeach is 32, and then 22 is the area between the Mizbeach and the Ulam, and finally Achari Kodesh HaKadoshim is another 11. So the Gemara is stuck. Where are we going to be able to utilize the pasuk of Yecheskel that it's only a 5 tefach amma? So finally the Gemara concludes in the last line, Ella, you know what it means? Chek amma is begoiva amma. Begoiva in the height. Amaroichav is kenisa. Gvul al svasa saviv. So the Gemara is saying that we're splitting up the pasuk. As we turn over to Zadi Chesam and Aleph, I'm really going to stop over here. Lo shna achi, v'lo yishna achi. And therefore, it's going to work in the fact that we're not going to be utilizing a 5 tefach amma fully in the height or fully in the width. We're going to utilize the part and part the next year. B'siyata d'shmaya, the Gemara now is going to go. And the Gemara is going to prove that this explanation is not at odds with either any of the kash that we asked before. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata d'shmaya.